2 a.m., my phone lit up with a call no parent should make. My mother screaming, my father begging, both demanding I send $15,000, 0 cents right now to save my brother from something they refused to explain. Their panic felt real, until the police called 30 minutes later. The officer's voice was calm, almost too calm, when he said 7 words that froze my blood. "Your brother isn't in trouble. He's here." And that's when the truth unraveled. If you're interested in this topic, hit the like button, subscribe, and type "interested" in the comments, and I will give you a heart. When my phone rang at 2 a.m., I was already half awake. The kind of restless half-sleep you slip into when something in your life feels off even if you can't explain why. The screen glowed against the darkness, flashing the names Mom and Dad together on a group call, something they had never once done in my entire life. The second I answered, the sound nearly knocked the breath out of me. My mother was sobbing so violently I couldn't understand a single word. My father's voice cut through hers, ragged, frantic, the way a man sounds when he's seconds from watching his whole world fall apart. "You have to send it right now. $15,000. Do it now!" No explanation, no details, no pause, just panic swallowing the line like a living thing. Before I could even ask what was happening, my mother screamed, "It's your brother! They're going to hurt him!" Hurt him. My stomach knotted so tight I felt nauseous. My brother Jason had made more mistakes in his 23 years than most people manage in a lifetime. Bad friends, worse decisions, and the kind of confidence that only comes when you think consequences are optional. But danger? Actual danger? That was new. My father's voice cracked. "We don't have the money. We need you to send it. Now, wire it, Cash App, anything." I sat upright in bed, heart pounding, sleep gone. What happened? Who's threatening him? Where is he? Silence. Just ragged breathing, a muffled scream in the background, high enough I couldn't tell if it came from my mother or the chaos around them. "Dad, listen. Tell me what is going on." "We don't have time," he roared. A sound I had never heard from him, not once, not even during the ugliest fights of my childhood. "Just send the money before," my mother screamed again. Then the line went dead. Just like that. Gone. A hollow silence filled my room, the kind that makes you feel like the universe has just shifted into a direction you're not ready for. I tried to call back. Nothing. Straight to voicemail. I texted. Delivered. Unread. My first instinct was to send the money immediately. My second instinct was the one that stopped me. The last time Jason got into trouble, he drained my mother's bank account, borrowing $4,200, 0 cents to repay a guy named Spike who sold bootleg vape pens behind a gas station. Another time he crashed my father's car and convinced them a mysterious hit-and-run driver had done it. Spoiler, he lied. But this call hadn't sounded like Jason manipulating anyone. It sounded like real terror. And that's what scared me more. I paced the room, phone clenched in my hand, the seconds stretching like rubber bands about to snap. Then something strange happened. 30 minutes later, almost exactly, I got another call. Unknown number, unknown location. I hesitated. Something in my body told me to brace myself. "Hello, is this Daniel Carter?" a calm male voice asked. Too calm, too steady, not panicked, not urgent, controlled. "Yes? Who is this?" "This is Officer Ramirez with the City Police Department." My whole world paused, stopped, tilted. Has something happened to my parents? My brother? Is this about the call I just got? They told me... "Your parents called you?" he interrupted lightly. At 2 a.m? Yes, they said Jason was in danger. They were screaming, crying. They said someone was threatening him. The officer exhaled slowly, almost the way someone does when they're preparing to deliver a blow you'll never fully recover from. "Your brother isn't in danger," he said. "He's here." "There? As in at the police station?" "Yes." "Is he okay?" A beat. A long one. "He's safe?" the officer said carefully. But he is not the victim in this situation. My skin prickled. What does that mean? He didn't answer right away. That was the first sign something was deeply, profoundly wrong. Mr. Carter, he finally said, before I explain anything else, I need to ask. Did your parents tell you why they needed the $15,000, 0 cents? No, I said, heartbeat slamming in my ears. They just kept saying someone was going to hurt him. They wouldn't tell me anything else. The officer exhaled again, this time heavier. Okay, then I need you to stay calm while I explain what actually happened tonight, because the story you were told is not the truth. My chest tightened, my jaw locked. Tell me, I didn't realize I had braced myself on the edge of the dresser until the wood dug into my palms. At 1:15 a.m. Officer began, your brother was brought into custody after witnesses reported suspicious behavior outside a closed electronics store. My breath caught. Jason. Of course. He was found carrying items believed to be stolen. We detained him without incident. My brother? Without incident? That was enough to tell me this story had more layers coming. None of them good. We contacted your parents to inform them, he continued. That is when things escalated. I frowned. Escalated how? Your father insisted your brother was innocent, which is not unusual for a parent, but then B began demanding that we release Jason immediately. Your mother began crying hysterically. She claimed Jason had been set up, that he didn't do anything wrong. That tracked. It always tracked. Jason breathed wrong in 2nd grade, and my parents blamed the school ventilation system. Jason failed a class, and the teacher was biased. Jason stole from our neighbor's garage, and they insisted the neighbor must have planted items to frame him. But then, something the officer said jolted me out of my spiraling thoughts. Then your parents left. Left? They walked out of the station in the middle of our questioning, saying they needed to make a call. Then they drove off. Cold numbness spread across my ribs. Wait. They left the police station, called Emmy for $15,000, 0 cents, and didn't tell you. Correct. Why would they need $15,000, 0 cents? Mr. Carter. His tone shifted, the calmness thinning into something heavier. They told you that money was for your brother, yes? Yes. It wasn't. I gripped the dresser harder. Then what was it for? Another beat of silence. Heavy. Grim. Your father is currently under investigation for potential involvement in a financial fraud case. The $15,000, 0 cents, was not for your brother's safety. It was intended for a payment your father was trying to make urgently to someone we are actively trying to identify. The room felt like it tilted on its axis. Fraud? A payment? My parents? 2 people who barely owned anything beyond their house, 2 people who always seemed overwhelmed by even simple bills, were wrapped up in something illegal? No, this didn't make sense. There is more, the officer added quietly, and this is why I called you personally. My lungs tightened. Go on. We reviewed surveillance footage before your brother was detained. The person Jason was seen with, the person handing him stolen goods to carry, wasn't a stranger. It was your father. Everything inside me cracked. My father, the man who called me screaming for money, was the one committing the crime. My brother wasn't being blackmailed. He wasn't a victim. He was helping him. We believe, the officer continued, your parents used you as the emergency piggy bank for something far deeper than a late-night crisis. And what they plan to do with the $15,000, 0 cents, may involve someone extremely dangerous. My knees buckled. Mr. Carter, the officer said, voice low, we need you to come to the station, now, before your parents call you again. I didn't know it yet, but the truth waiting for me at that station would break open a family secret older than I was and expose why they really wanted $15,000, 0 cents that night. It had nothing to do with Jason. It never did. By the time I reached the police station, the sky was still ink black, the kind of dark that makes streetlights look lonely instead of useful. My tires screeched into the parking lot, and all I could think about was how fast everything had unraveled, how a single phone call at 2 a.m. had taken the ground beneath my feet and folded it like paper. Inside the station, the air smelled like old coffee and tired fluorescent lights. A young officer buzzed me in, clearly expecting me. "Mr. Carter?" he asked. I nodded. "Follow me. Officer Ramirez is waiting." My pulse thudded in my ears as he led me through a narrow hallway lined with bulletin boards and doors marked "Authorized Personnel Only." When we reached a small interview room, Ramirez stood from a metal chair, his expression tight, professional, but with an undercurrent of something heavier. Maybe sympathy, maybe dread. "Daniel," he said, motioning for me to sit. "Thank you for coming." I sat, hands clasped, every nerve in my body coiled. "Tell me everything." Ramirez didn't ease into it. He didn't cushion it. He didn't warm me up. He just opened a manila folder and began. "Just after midnight, a silent alarm tripped at Techlin Electronics on West Avenue," he said. "Our officers responded. When they arrived, they found your brother Jason Carter exiting the side alley carrying merchandise." "Merchandise?" "Gaming consoles, high-end headphones, accessories. Around $6,000, 0 cents worth." My chest tightened. Jason never stole anything small, never did anything halfway. Did he admit to taking them? "No," Ramirez replied. "He claimed someone else handed him the items." "Who?" Ramirez slid a photograph across the table, a screenshot from security footage. My stomach dropped. My father, standing beside Jason, wearing a hooded jacket, glancing up and down the alley as Jason loaded electronics into a duffel bag. "Jesus," I whispered, the kind of whisper that tastes like disbelief, the kind of whisper that feels like betrayal. "He was there," Ramirez said quietly, "and based on his actions, he wasn't a bystander." For a moment, the room tilted. My father, who lectured me about responsibility, who claimed Jason was going through a phase, who insisted they were victims of misunderstandings, was caught on camera committing a felony with my brother. Ramirez continued, "After officers detained Jason, they tried to locate your father, but he was already gone." "Gone where?" "We don't know yet. He left on foot. His car wasn't at the scene." "Did he run?" Ramirez paused. "Yes." A single word. Heavy, final. Proof that whatever my parents told me on that 2 a.m. call was a deliberate fabrication. Ramirez leaned back. "Your parents arrived at the station minutes later. Your mother was crying. Your father tried to argue that Jason wasn't involved, that the footage was manipulated. He became agitated when we asked where he had been tonight. And then they left?" "Yes," Ramirez said. "When we stepped out briefly to process the footage, they slipped out. We thought they were getting fresh air. Instead, they drove off and called me," I said hollowly, "at 2 a.m., telling me Jason was in danger." Ramirez closed the file. "Yes." I rubbed my face, exhaustion and disbelief mixing into something sharp. "But why? Why call me for $15,000? What does that have to do with any of this?" Ramirez exchanged a glance with the second officer in the room. That glance wasn't procedural. It wasn't casual. It meant there's more. "Daniel," Ramirez said slowly, "your father wasn't just looking for money." "Untraceable money?" I stiffened. "For what?" "A payoff." My breath caught. "To who?" Ramirez slid another photo across the table. A mugshot. A name. A face I recognized instantly from local news segments about organized theft rings, loan sharks, debt collectors with reputations that made people cross the street. Marcus Layden, a man known for giving out large sums of cash and destroying anyone who defaulted. "We suspect," Ramirez said, "your father borrowed money from Layden several months ago. Layden's crew has been involved in multiple extortion cases. We believe tonight's events were linked to a missed payment. I felt my blood turn cold. So the $15,000 my parents demanded was likely to pay Layden before he sent someone after your father. Ramirez finished. Your parents used Jason's arrest as leverage to scare you into paying immediately. I sat there, stunned. My parents' terrified voices echoed in my mind, suddenly changed by this new light. But Jason wasn't in danger, I murmured. Not the way they made it sound. Well, Ramirez hesitated. Not the way they described it, no. But danger is still danger. He opened another document. We believe your father involved your brother in these thefts as a way to repay his debts to Layden. My head snapped up. What? Are you saying my father used Jason to commit crimes to pay off a loan shark? Ramirez nodded slowly. We've seen this pattern before. A parent under pressure, unable to repay, recruits a younger family member who doesn't understand the stakes. Does Jason know any of this? Ramirez gave a tired sigh. Your brother is claiming he didn't know what was going on. He says your father told him they were picking up items from a friend. Do you believe him? Ramirez hesitated. Too long. We're still evaluating, he said carefully, which meant no. Not entirely. The younger officer stepped forward. There's something else. Ramirez nodded for him to continue. Your parents didn't just leave the station, the young officer said. They fled. Fled where? We tracked their car through street cameras. They drove to an ATM, attempted to withdraw the maximum amount. Then they drove toward the industrial district. My heart dropped. Why there? The young officer pursed his lips. Because that's where Layden operates. Every part of me clenched. Wait, are you saying my parents went to meet the guy they owed money to? Yes, Ramirez said grimly, with no payment, no protection, and no plan. A hot wave of panic shot through my chest. Did they get hurt? Ramirez raised a hand. We don't know yet. As soon as we realized where they were headed, we sent a unit, but by the time officers arrived at the industrial yard, your parents were gone. Gone as in not there, Ramirez said quietly. Their car was found abandoned, driver's side door open, no signs of forced entry, no signs of a struggle, but definitely signs of someone leaving in a hurry. My heart hammered. My parents weren't innocent. They'd lied, manipulated, used me. But they were still my parents, the people who raised me, the people who called me screaming. So, they're missing? I whispered. Ramirez nodded once. The weight in the room grew heavier, thicker, like fog settling over the truth. Daniel, Ramirez said gently, we need your help. With what? We need you to tell us everything you know about your parents' finances, their connections, their behavior over the last year, anything that might explain why they were so desperate for that $15,000 0 cents. It felt surreal, like someone had rewritten my life in a language I didn't understand. I don't know anything, I admitted. They never told me anything. They always protected Jason, always hid things from me. Ramirez closed the file slowly. Dan, they didn't call Jason for the $15,000. 0 cents. I know. They called you. I know. Do you understand what that means? I met his eyes, and for the first time, the truth slammed into me like a punch. Yes, I whispered. They trusted me to fix the mess they created. No, Ramirez corrected softly. They counted on you, because they knew Jason wouldn't help them. My throat tightened. You're saying they used me? Yes, Ramirez said. And now, because they're missing, we need to find out why. I swallowed hard. What do you need from me? Ramirez leaned forward. We need to know where you think they went next. My entire childhood, all the favoritism, all the double standards, all the secrets suddenly rearranged themselves into something darker, something intentional, something connected. I exhaled shakily. I might know one place. Ramirez lifted a pen. Tell me." And as I opened my mouth, Ramirez leaned forward in his chair, pen hovering over the notebook like my next sentence might either solve this case or split it wide open. But before I said anything, I just sat there for a moment, staring at the table, at my hands, at the cheap fluorescent reflection above the metal surface. Because the truth was, the place I was about to mention wasn't a guess. It wasn't a possibility. It was a memory I didn't want to touch, but one that refused to stay buried. "There's a warehouse," I finally said, my voice low. "What kind of warehouse?" My throat tightened. "One my father used to take Jason to, not me. Never me." Ramirez's eyebrows twitched. "What for?" "He called it bonding time," I said bitterly. "But I know now it was something else." I took a slow breath. "And if that's where they went tonight, things are worse than you think." Ramirez exchanged a look with the younger officer, a quick, silent conversation. "Where is this warehouse?" he asked. "Near the river," I said. "Old Fulton Docks, Building 17, the young officer stiffened. "Sir, that's one of Layden's properties." "I know," I said. "My dad doesn't own it, but he's been there before." Ramirez's posture shifted, tension climbing his spine like a warning. "Daniel," he said cautiously, "if your father has been using that location, it may not be his first time working for Layden." I clenched my jaw. I figured that out, but Ramirez wasn't finished. "And if he took Jason there before, it means Jason's been involved longer than he admitted," I finished. The globe of dread in my stomach pressed against my ribs like it wanted to break them. Because suddenly, everything matched up. The sudden need for money, the late-night calls, the excuses, the tension in their voices, the fear dripping through every word they said to me. They weren't protecting Jason, they weren't helping him, they were dragging him down with them. Ramirez tapped his pen. "We need your description of this place, everything you remember." I felt 12 years old again, sitting on the stairs listening to my father scream at Jason and call it toughening him up. Only now, that toughening had grown teeth. "It's big," I said. Vacant looking from the outside, rusted metal siding, gray. The number 17 is spray painted on the left side of the main doors. "Inside?" Ramirez asked. "Dark, except for lamps they hooked to portable generators, a lot of crates, stacks of them, some marked with shipping codes my dad said were none of my business, a metal staircase that leads to an office above the main floor, windows overlooking everything." I swallowed. "That's where he used to take Jason." Upstairs, voices echoing, men yelling, my father telling him to watch and learn. My hands tightened together. I didn't know what any of it meant back then. I thought it was just guys being weird. But now it looks like a staging site. Ramirez said grimly. "Storage, exchanges, collections. A perfect place for Layden's people to operate unseen." The truth sat on my chest like a weight. "So, that's where they are?" I asked. "Maybe," Ramirez said, "but Layden's unpredictable. We don't know if your parents went to negotiate or to hide." "Hide?" I echoed. "Hide from who?" Ramirez's expression was grim. "From Layden's enforcers. They give one warning. After that, people disappear." My breath caught. "They wouldn't." Ramirez cut me off gently. "Daniel, people do desperate things when cornered." I wasn't sure if he meant Layden or my parents, maybe both. The younger officer stepped out to make a call, and Ramirez leaned closer in the dimly lit interview room. "I need to know something," he said, "and I need you to be honest, even if it hurts." I nodded. "Did your parents ever ask you for money before tonight?" My eyes dropped. "Yes." "How much?" "It started small," I admitted. "A couple hundred here and there, then 1,000, then another. My dad always had a story. Car repairs, taxes, medical bills, but," Ramirez pressed, "but it was always urgent, always last minute." "And Jason?" I exhaled shakily. "They said it was for him, school fees, rent, his car, his job training." "Was that true?" Ramirez asked. "No," I said. Jason told me last year he never saw a penny of it. So they lied to get money from you. Yes. How much total would you say you given them? My voice was barely a whisper. Around $12,000. Ramirez nodded slowly. So your parents didn't call you at random tonight. They called the person they knew would always say yes. I blinked hard. Because hearing it said aloud like that, it cut deeper than any lie they'd told me before. They targeted you because you're the responsible one, Ramirez said. The one who always cleans up the mess. No, I whispered. Jason was always the favorite. Exactly, Ramirez replied, which is why they'd never put him in danger if they could shift the consequences onto you. But Jason was involved, I argued. It was arrested. Because your father dragged him there, Ramirez said firmly. Because your father needed him. That twisted something inside me because for the first time, I realized the imbalance in our family wasn't favoritism. It was recruitment. This warehouse, Ramirez said, pulling me back to the present. Did your father ever tell you not to come with him? Always, I said instantly. Every time. Why? Because I wasn't useful to him. I wasn't the son he could mold. I wasn't the one he could involve in his dirty secrets. I wasn't the one he could corrupt. Jason was. Ramirez nodded slowly. Your parents weren't calling you tonight because they trusted you with responsibility. They were calling you because they needed someone they believed was safe. Someone uninvolved. Someone clean. Clean, I repeated. Meaning? Meaning if they were caught, Ramirez said quietly, they needed you on the outside, to pay, to negotiate, to bail them out, to keep them afloat. My jaw clenched, to be their backup plan. Yes. I sank back in my chair, feeling a strange blend of betrayal, grief, and rage swirl through me like a storm I couldn't outrun. This wasn't just a bad night. This was years of manipulation coming into horrifying clarity. The young officer returned. His face was pale. Too pale. We found something. Ramirez tensed. What? The officer hesitated, looking at me before answering. We found your parents' car. I sat up. Where? Near the warehouse district, he said. 2 blocks from Building 17. And my parents? They weren't there. Then what? There was blood, the officer said quietly, on the driver's seat, and on the ground beside the car. My breath froze in my lungs. Is it? We don't know yet, he said. The lab is analyzing it now, but based on the pattern, we believe someone was injured while exiting the vehicle. Injured how badly? Badly, he said, but still mobile. Meaning they walked away or were taken, he said. We don't know. The officer stepped closer. We also found this. He placed a small object on the table. A phone. My mother's phone. Covered in dirt. The screen cracked. And still vibrating with missed call notifications. All from me. My chest tightened painfully. Ramirez exhaled. Daniel. But his voice faded behind the sheer terror rising in my throat, because suddenly I understood something I hadn't realized until this moment. The 2 a.m. call wasn't a warning. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't desperation. It was a goodbye. Or worse, a setup. But for who? For what? And why now? Ramirez placed a steady hand on the table. We need to move. Now, but even as he stood, ordering officers to mobilize toward the warehouse district, I could only stare at the cracked phone, my mother's phone, feeling a horrible certainty creep into my bones. Whatever happened next wasn't going to be about rescue. It was going to be about truth. And truth, real truth, was always the darkest part of any story. The drive to the warehouse district didn't feel real. It felt like traveling through a dream you couldn't wake up from. The kind where the deeper you go, the more everything tilts sideways. Police lights flashed against the glass as our convoy cut through the city, illuminating my reflection in the passenger window. I looked pale, hollow, like someone bracing for an impact they couldn't see, but could already feel in the marrow of their bones. Detective Ramirez sat beside me, speaking into his radio with clipped urgency. Units 3 through 7, perimeter lock, nobody moves in or out. Warehouse 17 is our primary target. Proceed silent until command is given. The younger officer, Carter, drove with both hands gripping the wheel, eyes fixed ahead like terror was riding in the back seat. As we approached the industrial strip, the smell hit first, salt water from the river mixing with rust, old wood, oil, and something else. Something that felt like danger. The skyline thinned into silhouettes of abandoned buildings leaning sideways like giants, frozen mid-submission. Signs snapped in the wind, gutters whistled. The ice-cold kind of silence blanketed the entire stretch, silence that warned you something was watching. Building 17 is at the far end, Ramirez said, 2 blocks down. My heart hammered. And my parents? If they're here, Ramirez answered, we'll find them. He didn't sound convinced. The closer we got, the heavier the world felt. We passed a row of dumpsters, a burnt-out car, graffiti scrawled across metal siding like angry scribbles. Officers fanned out behind us. The air tasted metallic, like something electric was about to snap. Warehouse 17 emerged from behind a chain-length fence. Huge, gray, silent. The 17 painted on the side was faded but unmistakable. Exactly how I remembered it. Exactly as terrifying. Carter killed the engine. Ramirez turned to me. This could get dangerous fast. I need you to stay behind the police line. No exceptions. I nodded, though my body screamed to run inside and tear the place open myself. But then something caught the corner of my eye. A shape, barely seen. A shadow moving behind the warehouse door. Someone's inside, I whispered. Ramirez signaled to 2 officers. Clear entrance approach. Slow. They edged toward the sliding metal door, weapons drawn. The sound of boots crunching gravel echoed too loudly. When one officer tugged on the door handle, it didn't budge. Locked, he whispered. Ramirez nodded. Breach it. The battering ram connected with a crack, then another, until the latch snapped and the door slid open with a tortured metallic groan. Flashlights swept the darkness. Police, an officer shouted. If you're in here, show yourself. The warehouse swallowed the sound like it enjoyed it. Cold air rushed out, carrying dust and old secrets. Ramirez motioned me to stay back, then entered with his team. But as soon as they stepped inside, a chill slithered down my spine. A warning my brain couldn't fully translate. I followed them just enough to see inside, and instantly wished I hadn't. The interior was exactly like the nightmares I used to have. Tall, stacked crates, hanging bulbs powered by a single generator in the corner, shadows crawling over concrete. But something new was there. Fresh blood smeared along the floor in uneven streaks. Not a pool, not a spray, drag marks. Ramirez knelt, touching the smear with a gloved hand. Not dry, he said, less than an hour. My chest constricted. Could it be my mom? Could be anyone, Ramirez said. Don't assume worst case yet. But his tone betrayed him. One officer called out, "Detective! Footprints!" Ramirez and I hurried to the corner where the officer pointed to prints in the dust. 2 sets. One normal stride, one dragging a leg. The dragged set was smaller. That could be your mother, Ramirez said quietly, and she was alive when these were made. Alive but hurt, I whispered. Or being forced, Ramirez added. Before I could speak, Officer Carter shouted from across the room, "Detective, you're gonna want to see this." Against the far wall, he'd uncovered something partially hidden behind crates. A tarp, blood-soaked, and beneath it, a phone. A wallet, a keychain, all my father's. My stomach flipped. "Where is he?" I whispered. Ramirez examined the items. "The blood around this isn't enough to indicate fatal injury. He walked or was moved from here. So They're not dead, I breathed. We don't know, Ramirez warned, not yet. But something in the warehouse wasn't adding up. Something was wrong with the layout, wrong with the silence, wrong with the smeared footprints stopping abruptly near the back wall, like someone lifted the person off the ground. Detective, Carter said with dread, I think they were taken further. Ramirez followed his stare. There, barely visible, was a metal door partially camouflaged by crates, a hidden basement entrance, a door I didn't know existed. Stay here, Ramirez ordered me. No, I said. Whatever's behind that door, my parents might be. Daniel, he snapped softly, you cannot walk into a possible trafficking tunnel, drug hold, or execution site unprotected. My lungs tightened. But before the argument could continue, a sound drifted up from below the door, a faint metallic clang, followed by a voice, a man's voice, moaning, panicked, help, please. My blood turned to ice. Dad. Ramirez's head snapped toward me. You recognize that? Yes, I whispered. That's him. Officers moved fast. 2 positioned on each side of the door, guns ready. One officer tested the handle, locked. Ramirez nodded. Breach. The ram slammed into the metal. Once, twice. The third hit split the lock and the door flew open, revealing a dark staircase descending into shadows thick as tar. A smell drifted up, musty, damp, metallic, and something else. Something sour. Something like fear made physical. Clear, an officer shouted as they swept inside. I waited on the threshold of that dark tunnel, heart slamming in my chest so hard it almost hurt. When flashlights began illuminating the bottom of the stairs, I saw him. My father, tied to a chair, hands bound, face swollen, shirt soaked in blood. He was alive, but barely. Dad! I started down the steps until Ramirez grabbed my arm. Wait, let me go! We have to clear the area first, he barked. At that moment, I understood what fear tastes like. Metallic, choking, drowning you inside your own heartbeat. Officers circled my father, checking the corners. All clear, someone yelled. I rushed down the steps, stumbling as my knees nearly buckled. Dad, can you hear me? His eyelids fluttered weakly before he forced them open. He looked at me, right at me, and I felt every insult, every disappointment, every argument, all of it disappear. Daniel, he whispered, voice cracked like old wood. You shouldn't be here. Where's Mom? I begged. Where is she? His throat bobbed. His eyes filled with something I hadn't seen since I was a kid. Pure fear. They took her, he whispered. They took your mother, because of me. Amy? I cried. Why is any of this happening? His mouth trembled, his voice broke. Because I didn't owe $15,000, he whispered. I owed them 80. My breath caught. 80,000? He shook his head slowly, painfully. 80,000 was the interest. My heart stopped. Then what was the actual debt? He closed his eyes, and when he opened them, the truth slid out like a knife, meant to kill everything I thought I knew. $1.2 million. My blood ran cold. Ramirez froze. Carter's jaw dropped, and I felt the world tilt. Daniel, my father choked. Your mother tried to run. They grabbed her, said they needed a bigger payment, a guarantee, something worth more than money. I leaned forward, hands shaking. What guarantee? His breath shuddered, and then he whispered the words that sent a bolt of terror through my spine, so violent I nearly collapsed. They want you. The words, they want you, didn't just land. They detonated. They ripped through the cold basement air, through the concrete walls, through every assumption I'd been clinging to. For a moment, sound vanished. Color faded. My vision narrowed into a tunnel, with only my father's bruised face at the end. My pulse thrashed so hard it felt like it was trying to rip through my ribs. "What do you mean, they want me?" I whispered, barely able to produce sound. My father winced, not from pain, but from shame. Shame so heavy it seemed to bend his spine. They said you were worth more alive than any payment I could give," he whispered. "They think you have something they want, something I promised them." My throat tightened, like I'd swallowed a burning coal. Promised what? His eyes filled, and that terrified me more than the blood on his collar. "Information, access, contacts." "I don't have any of that," I cried, my voice rising for the first time since the nightmare began. "What could they possibly want from me?" He hesitated, and that hesitation was worse than an answer. Behind me, Detective Ramirez stepped closer. His voice hardened. "Mr. Collins, what exactly did you tell them your son could provide?" My father closed his eyes for several seconds before forcing himself to speak. "I told them he worked for the police." The entire basement froze. Ramirez stiffened. Carter's jaw tightened. And I felt the concrete beneath my shoes tilt. "Dad," I said slowly, carefully, "why would you say something like that?" "Because I panicked," he sobbed. "They were threatening to break my legs. Your mother was screaming. One of them held a gun to her neck." His voice cracked, splintering into something raw. "I told them you were a detective, that you had strings you could pull, that you could wipe their case, their charges, their travel flags, anything that would make them let her go." My stomach churned with a kind of nausea no illness could create. "Dad," I whispered, "I'm an accountant." "I know," he shouted through tears. "But they don't." He broke down then, hands bound, face bowed, sobbing like a child. "They think you can get them out of the country. They think you can erase their records. They think you're the key." I pressed a hand to my forehead, trying to breathe past the panic belly flopping inside me. Ramirez stepped forward, anger simmering under his composure. "You told a criminal network that your son had the power to clear them?" I didn't know what else to do," my father stammered. "They said if I didn't give them something they could use, they'd take her. And then they'd take him." He looked at me again, eyes trembling with regret. "I didn't think they'd actually believe me. I didn't think criminals desperate to escape prosecution will believe anything that smells like hope," Ramirez said darkly. "And now they think Daniel is their bargaining chip." My hands were shaking. My chest felt tight. I couldn't swallow. "So they took Mom because they think I am an asset?" "Yes," my father whispered. "But they also said..." He hesitated again. "Said what?" I demanded. His voice dropped to a whisper, barely audible over the buzzing fluorescent light. "They said if you didn't cooperate, they'd make me watch what they do to her." Rage, hot enough to burn bone, surged into my chest. For a second, I thought I might scream, or break something, or collapse. Maybe all three. Behind us, an officer suddenly shouted from upstairs, "Detective, we've got movement outside." "Collins, stay with him. Carter, you're with me." "No," I said, stepping forward. "I'm coming." Ramirez spun. "The hell you are! They want me, right? They think I'm the prize? Which is precisely why you are staying behind police lines," Ramirez said sharply. "You walking out there is exactly what they want." But my mother's face flashed in my mind. Her warm laughter, her soft hands, the way she always said my name like it meant something. And then I pictured her bruised, terrified, tied up like my father. "Detective," I said quietly, "they won't kill her until they have me. That means she's alive. For now." My father made a strangled sound. Ramirez studied me. Really studied me. Like he was reading a blueprint of my resolve. Then finally, You stay exactly behind me, and you do not move unless I tell you to. Deal." He turned to Carter. "Cover him like he's oxygen." Carter nodded, face pale. My heart pounded so violently I could feel it in my fingertips. When we reached the warehouse entrance, the police outside were already repositioning behind vehicles, using them as shields. Blue and red lights painted the asphalt. Officers pointed toward the far fence line. "Detective, east perimeter, 2 figures. Running." Ramirez lifted his binoculars. "Zoom. Focus. Got them." "Is it my mom?" I breathed. Ramirez didn't answer, his eyebrows lowered, his jaw clenched. "Detective?" I whispered. "What do you see?" He lowered the binoculars slowly, too slowly. "It's not your mother." "Then who?" "2 men," Ramirez said, heavily armed, scouting, watching the response. A fresh wave of dread slammed into me. "They're casing the scene," Carter said. "Testing police reaction time." "They're planning something bigger," Ramirez muttered. "Much bigger." Before I could ask what that meant, one of the 2 men at the fence line looked directly toward us, like he could see through the darkness, across the distance, straight into the warehouse. And then he gave a small nod and a signal. The other man raised his hand and held up a phone. Ramirez stiffened. "He's calling." "Calling who?" I whispered. A sound rose from behind me, an officer's radio buzzing with an incoming transmission. Dispatch's voice crackled through. "Detective Ramirez, incoming call routed through emergency bandwidth, unknown number. Caller states it is for Daniel Collins." Every officer froze. My stomach tied itself into a violent knot. Ramirez grabbed his comm. "Patch it through." A click. A hiss. And then, a voice dripping with calm, cold amusement filled the channel. "Daniel, we've been waiting for you." My entire body turned to stone. The voice continued, slow and deliberate. "Your mother says hello." I felt the world fall out from under me. "If you want to see her alive again," the voice said, shimmering with cruelty, "you'll come home. With no police, no weapons, no games." My hands trembled so violently I had to clench them into fists. "Where is she?" I choked out. The man chuckled softly. "Oh, Daniel, you'll know soon enough. But first," a pause. A long, heavy pause that seemed to stretch beyond the boundaries of sound. "Your father lied to us. You are going to fix that." "What do you want?" I demanded. "What I was promised," the voice said. "Freedom." "I can't give you that," I cried. "I don't have authority. I don't work for the police." Another chuckle. "Then you better learn fast." "Listen to me." "No, Daniel, you listen." His tone sharpened like a blade. "You have 6 hours. Bring yourself to the address I will send. Alone." "If I don't?" Another pause, then a scream. My mother's scream, high-pitched, terrified, real. The man yelled over her, wailing, "If you don't, your mother dies first, and your father second." The line went dead. Police radios erupted. Carter cursed under his breath. Ramirez grabbed my shoulder. "Don't even think about going alone." My vision blurred with tears and fury. "He has my mom, and we will get her back," Ramirez said. "But we do this smart or we lose everything." My phone buzzed. A text. 1 line, 1 address. 1 message beneath it. 6 hours. Do not be late. My entire life condensed into a single truth. If I made the wrong move, my mother would die. And the men watching from the fence knew it. They turned and disappeared into the night. Ramirez didn't let go of my shoulder until he was sure I could stand without collapsing, and even then his hand hovered there like he was ready to grab me the second my knees gave out, which honestly felt like a real possibility. Because my body was shaking so hard, it didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like I was wearing a suit made of panic that didn't fit right. Too tight around the chest, too loud in the ears, too heavy in the legs. 6 hours, that voice had said. Like my mother's life was a timer on a microwave. Like everything I'd ever known about family and safety and love wasn't currently bleeding out under the weight of a debt I never knew existed. A lie I'd never agreed to. And a promise my father made using my name like collateral. "We're not letting you walk into that alone," Ramirez said, calm but firm, like he'd already anticipated every argument I was about to throw at him. That wasn't a suggestion, that was a threat. And you don't negotiate with men who open with threats on your mother's life. But all I could think was that somewhere, right now, my mom was blindfolded or tied up or thrown in some trunk, crying and asking what she did wrong, and the only answer was she married the wrong man and raised a son who thought he was saving his family every time he said yes to them. "If I don't go," I said, my voice strangled, "they'll kill her. You heard him. You heard her." My throat closed on that last word because that scream hadn't been staged. It hadn't been a recording. It had been raw and ripped from her like something physical, and I knew her voice better than my own. I'd grown up with it, cutting through fights and birthdays and late-night homework, and now, through every mental defense I tried to build. "Listen to me," Ramirez said, stepping in front of me so my whole field of vision was just his face. Grounded, controlled. "These guys aren't street kids playing tough Daniel. They're organized, they're patient, they're meaner than you think and smarter than your father will ever admit. That 6 hours wasn't for you, it was for us. For law enforcement response time, for how long it takes to set up traps, to prep vehicles, to move your mother somewhere harder to reach, for how long it takes panic to override logic and get you to do something stupid." And he didn't say it like an insult. He said it like a fact, like gravity, like physics. Carter stepped closer, eyes flicking between us and the fence line like he expected those two watchers to materialize out of thin air. "We'll trace the number, pull camera feeds near the tower hits, maybe get a vehicle plate," he said quickly, trying to give me something that sounded like motion, like progress. "If they sent an address, we already have your phone. Tech unit can clone it, mirror everything they see. If you text, if they call, we'll have it." They said, "No," police said, hearing how small it sounded in comparison to the magnitude of what was happening, and hating myself for it. Hating how they were already inside my head, using my fear like a remote control. "You think they expect you to walk there in a straight line with a big neon sign that says no cops over your head?" Ramirez asked, one eyebrow lifting just slightly. His calm felt like steel, like someone who had stood on this edge too many times and knew exactly how easy it was to fall. "If they're as smart as I think they are, they've already accounted for the possibility of police involvement, which means our goal isn't to hide cops, it's to outthink them, get ahead of them, use their arrogance against them." He motioned to one of the uniforms. "Get tech over here, now. I want a portable clone of his phone and a live relay to the command van." The officer sprinted off, and Ramirez turned back to me. "We're going back to the station. You're going to tell me everything you know about your father's dealings, your brother's habits, every strange phone call, every comment, every knock on your door that felt off and you ignored, because there is no such thing as it was probably nothing anymore. Do you understand that?" I nodded, because what else could I do? The world I'd known had already been shattered. What was one more layer of denial peeled away? As we moved back toward the cars, I glanced over my shoulder at the warehouse like it might decide to swallow itself whole now that its secrets were exposed. My dad was still in that basement, paramedics working over him, radio chatter punctuated with words like "stable for transport" and "possible fracture" and "we'll know more at the hospital." And I realized I didn't know how to feel about that, about the man who gave me life and then tried to use that same life as leverage, who sat at our dinner table and told me he was taking care of things while signing me up as a bargaining chip. "Is it messed up that I don't know if I want him to be okay?" I asked, suddenly, as we walked. It came out more honest than I meant it to. Ramirez didn't flinch. "No," he said simply. "It's human. Hurt and love don't cancel each other out. They sit in the same room and glare at each other, and you're stuck in the middle trying to figure out which one you owe more to." That was probably the closest thing to permission I'd ever been given to feel complicated about my own family. Back at the station, everything sped up and slowed down at the same time, the way emergency rooms do. People moving fast while the clock moves weird. Tex hooked my phone into some device that mirrored it on a large monitor, a clean digital twin waiting for the kidnapper's next move, every officer's eyes flicking toward it like it was a live grenade on the table. A woman from the cyber unit, dark hair in a tight bun, glasses sliding down her nose, typed so fast her fingers blurred. "We've pulled the incoming call metadata. Numbers bounce through multiple virtual relays, but these guys aren't NSA level. We'll get a general area soon," she said, not looking up. Text came from a burner device pinging off towers near the old Eastern Industrial Strip, 3-mile radius, all warehouses, yards, scrap lots. Lovely place for an ambush. "Can you spoof a response?" Ramirez asked. "If they text again, can we delay it, route their location attempts through our own filter?" "If they're sloppy, yes," she replied. "If they're using any halfway decent encryption, we'll still see their approximate cell triangle." Ramirez turned to me. "You asked earlier if this was about your brother. We need to talk about him now." My stomach knotted again. "What about Jason?" "Your parents said this was for him," Ramirez said, leaning back against the table, crossing his arms, watching my face carefully. 15,000, late night call, he's in trouble, if you don't pay, something bad will happen, right?" "Yes," I said. "Only the police didn't call you about your brother," Ramirez continued. "They called about a vehicle. A trap, a pattern we've been trying to nail for months." "Your parents inserted his name into it. Question is, why him? Why not just say, they owed money? Why bring Jason into this at all?" "Because they assumed I'd say yes faster if Jason was involved," I said bitterly. "He's always been the excuse. Help your brother. He's trying his best. He just needs a break." "Maybe," Ramirez said, "or maybe Jason isn't as uninvolved as you think." I felt my chest tighten. "What are you saying?" He pushed a manila folder across the table. "These are arrest records from the last 3 years, tied to known associates of the same organization we think your father's mixed up with," he said. "Guess whose name surfaces in 2 witness statements?" My hands hesitated over the folder before finally flipping it open. Words blurred until I forced myself to focus. A nightclub, a scuffle, a backroom meeting, a guy described as JD with a tattoo on his wrist, taking a wad of cash from a man we already had in our system. A note in the margin, possible recruiter/runner. JD, I whispered. "Jason Dawson Collins," Ramirez said quietly. "Your brother likes to gamble, right? Cards, sports bets, bar tabs he can't pay?" My mouth went dry. "He always said he was just unlucky," I muttered. "He said things would turn around." "They did," Ramirez said. "It's not the way you hoped. We believe Jason started running small jobs for these guys to clear his debts. At first it was safe, deliveries, introductions, collecting cash from people who were more scared than him. Then the stakes rose. So did what he owed. Men like this don't just want their money back, they want a useful asset. From what we can see, your brother fit the profile perfectly." I sank back in the chair, the betrayal landing in layers. My parents using my brother as a shield, my brother possibly bringing the storm to our doorstep, and me, the idiot middleman everyone turned to when it was time to pay the bill. "So this was never about $15,000, I said slowly. "That number was something they thought I could handle." "Exactly," Ramirez replied. "They might softened you with a smaller lie so you'd never see the larger one coming." My phone buzzed on the table, and every head in the room whipped toward it, the screen lighting up like a spotlight in a dark theater. One new message. No number name, just unknown. The tech froze it on the big screen, mirroring every pixel. The text sat there in black and white, short enough to feel like a punch. Tick, tock, Daniel. Ask the nice detective what happens to families who waste my time. A picture followed. 1 second delay, then another. The image resolved slowly, like it was crawling out of the screen just to torture me. My mother, blindfolded, hands tied behind a chair. A bruise blossoming along her jaw, a strip of duct tape hanging loose around her neck like they'd just peeled it off to let her scream into that phone call. A man's hand gripped her shoulder, fingers dug in deep enough to leave marks. Only his arm and torso were visible, not his face, but the background made my heart misfire. It was our old living room, the house I grew up in. The peeling wallpaper, the cracked lamp, the old family portrait slightly crooked behind her. "They're in your parents' old house," Carter breathed. "They didn't move her to some unknown location, they brought her home." Ramirez's eyes narrowed. "He wants to make this personal." "He already did," I whispered, feeling my eyes sting, anger and terror and grief, all crashing together like a wave I couldn't outrun. Another message came through before anyone could speak. 6 hours, no cops, no games, come home, Daniel, or we finish what your father started. The tech looked at Ramirez. "They know we're involved," she said. "They're baiting you now." Ramirez's gaze locked on mine. "They picked the battlefield," he said. "But they forgot something." "What?" I asked, my voice barely holding together. His jaw tightened. "We're not walking into their game," he said. "We're going to make them walk into ours." I don't know how long I stood in my living room after the detective hung up. The house felt unfamiliar, like someone had rearranged all the air inside it. I remember staring at my own hands, struggling to understand why they were shaking when the worst part hadn't even happened yet. People talk about parental betrayal like it's a metaphor, like it's an exaggeration for dramatic effect. But betrayal has a sound, an actual physical sound. For me, it was the faint click of my front door as I locked it, realizing for the first time in my life that I was locking it against my own family. I sat on the couch, the same couch where I'd once slept with my brother when we were kids during thunderstorms, and I tried to reconcile that boy with the grown man who'd now involved me in a felony case without hesitation. But the part that tore at me wasn't him, it was my parents. I leaned back against the cushions and closed my eyes because exhaustion had finally found me, slow, suffocating, and strangely heavy. Then my phone buzzed again. For 1 second, my heart stopped because I thought it was them. But it wasn't. It was a text from Detective Harris. "We need you down at the station in the morning. There's something you need to see." That should have eased me. It didn't, because it meant there was more. After a night like that, "there's something you need to see," doesn't mean good news. I barely slept. My mind replayed everything. My mother's voice cracking, my father yelling, the urgency in their tone, the money they demanded, the timeline they insisted on. I tried, for just a moment, to believe their version of the story. But the detective's voice overpowered every attempt. "Your parents lied." That sentence infected every memory. By morning, my chest felt tight in a way I'd never experienced, not anxiety, something colder. Something like mourning. When I arrived at the station, Detective Harris met me in the lobby. He didn't smile, didn't greet me with small talk. He just nodded once and motioned for me to follow him. His silence was louder than any explanation could have been. He led me to a small conference room with a long table and one monitor in the center. Files were stacked neatly like they were waiting for me. Harris shut the door gently. "Before I show you this," he said, "I need you to understand something. Last night wasn't spontaneous, it wasn't panic. It wasn't even about saving your brother." I stared at him confused. "What do you mean?" He took a deep breath like he disliked being the one to tell me this. "Your parents weren't trying to pay off someone your brother owed money to. They were trying to pay off someone they owed money to, and your brother took the fall to protect them. I just blinked. That made no sense. My parents weren't reckless with money. They were disciplined, careful, controlling, yes, but financially responsible. Harris clicked the monitor on. The video was grainy but clear enough. A small room. A metal table. A young man slumped in a chair with his face buried in his hands. My brother. My chest tightened automatically, but when he lifted his head, something inside me cracked. He didn't look angry, or scared, or defensive. He looked broken. His eyes were swollen like he hadn't slept in days. His hair was a mess. His jaw trembled each time he exhaled. Detective Harris turned the volume up. The interrogator's voice filled the room. "Did your parents ask you to call your sister?" My brother nodded. "And what exactly did they tell you to say?" He wiped his eyes with the back of his wrist, humiliated that anyone would see him cry. "They told me to tell her I owed money, that I was in trouble, that it was urgent. They said she'd give it to me. But it wasn't your debt?" He shook his head. "No." "Whose debt was it?" My brother hesitated. You could see the war happening in his mind. He wanted to protect them. He didn't want to expose them. Even after everything, finally he whispered the words. "It was theirs." Detective Harris paused the video. "Your parents owe over $37,000, 0 cents, to a private lender. Someone who doesn't use contracts, doesn't use paperwork, and doesn't wait politely for repayment." My stomach dropped. Why would they borrow that kind of money? Harris turned the monitor off. "Gambling." My breath caught. "My parents don't gamble?" He held up a folder and opened it. "Then they do now. Page after page, screenshots, bank withdrawals, casino transactions, ATM pulls near gambling establishments, all time-stamped, all recent, all in amounts that made my head spin." "We believe it started about 9 months ago," Harris continued. "Your father began going on weekends. Your mother joined shortly after. Their losses escalated. Then they borrowed. Then they borrowed again. Then they lied." My throat felt tight. "But why involve me? Why drag me into this?" Harris looked at me with a mixture of frustration and sympathy. "Because you're the stable one." I froze. The stable one? The reliable one? The responsible one. I'd always been praised for it, but now it was clear what that title actually meant. When things fell apart, I was the one they assumed would fix it, pay for it, carry it, even if it crushed me. "Your brother tried to protect you," Harris added softly. "He didn't want to call. They pressured him. They told him you'd forgive him, that you wouldn't forgive them." I sat back in my chair, the air leaving my lungs in one shaky exhale. They hadn't even considered the damage. They'd simply assumed I'd show up, wallet open, unquestioning, just like always. Harris slid a new file toward me. "Your brother also told us something else. Something you need to know before you talk to your parents again." My heart pounded. "What?" "The lender your parents borrowed from sent someone to your brother's work last week. He wasn't in danger yet, but your parents were. And when people like that want money," Harris looked me dead in the eyes. "They don't care who bleeds?" I felt cold, colder than the early morning air outside the station. "So what happens now?" Harris folded his hands. "Your brother isn't being charged. His involvement was coerced. But your parents? They're facing multiple counts of fraud, coercion, false statements to police, and reckless endangerment. We're taking them into custody this afternoon." I closed my eyes. The image of my mother crying on the phone, my father yelling, their panic, their urgency, none of it was about me. None of it was about my brother. It was about consequences finally catching up to them, and they thought I would be their escape hatch. "When we arrest them," Harris continued, "they're going to call you. They're going to beg. They're going to blame your brother. They may even blame you." I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because I already knew something with bone-deep clarity. I wasn't the escape hatch for them anymore. I was the witness. Harris stood. "We'll call you when it's done." As I walked out of the station, the sun was rising, soft, golden, painfully warm against a night full of cold truths. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the stable one. I felt like the one who finally understood the rules. The moment I got home, my phone started ringing. Their number, my screen lit up over and over, but I didn't answer. I let it ring until it stopped because for once in my life, silence wasn't weakness. It was justice beginning to arrive. The calls didn't stop. If anything, they multiplied. Missed call after missed call stacked on my lock screen until the notifications blurred into one long block of desperation. I stared at it for a few seconds, feeling a strange mix of grief, anger, and something I wasn't ready to name. Maybe disappointment, maybe release. I set the phone face down on the counter because every vibration felt like a tap from a ghost. Someone I used to trust, someone who no longer existed. I made coffee I didn't drink. I paced the kitchen without meaning to. Every few minutes, I caught myself glancing at the phone like muscle memory hadn't caught up to reality. The truth was simple. The people who raised me, who taught me about honesty and responsibility, had lied so thoroughly that even the memories felt corrupted. I kept replaying the night before, looking for signs I had missed, voices too tense, words too carefully chosen, fear too dramatic. But everything about my parents' panic now felt rehearsed. Their voices had trembled on cue. Their outrage had been perfectly timed. The urgency, the manipulation, the guilt, it was all practiced. And that realization hurt more than anything else. Because if someone can rehearse a lie, it means they've practiced it before. It means last night wasn't the first time they used fear to control someone. My chest tightened as understanding settled in. Maybe I'd just never seen it because I'd never needed to be their target. My brother had, for years, and I hadn't noticed. Around noon, the detective's number flashed across my screen. This time, I answered. His voice was steady. "It's happening now. We're at the house." I didn't know what response he expected, but I wasn't the person I was 24 hours ago. "Okay," I said quietly. "Let me know when it's done." He hesitated. "They're asking for you." I felt my jaw tighten. "Of course they are. Do you want to speak to them?" "No." The word came out calm, almost peaceful. Harris didn't argue. "We'll update you." The call ended. Silence returned. I sat at the dining table, staring at nothing long enough for the sunlight to shift across the floorboards, and then another vibration. Not a call, a text, one word. "Dad. Please." I stared at it for a long time, not because I was tempted to respond, but because that single word revealed everything. Not an apology, not an explanation, not a confession, just a request. A demand, really, for rescue. Even now, with the truth burning around them, they assumed I would step in. I typed nothing, but I didn't delete it either. I wanted to remember exactly who they'd become. The next message came seconds later. "Mom, we're being arrested. You need to come down here and tell them this was a misunderstanding." The entitlement radiated through the text. Even now, they saw me as a solution, not a person. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. For a moment, something old flared in my chest, the child who wanted approval, who wanted to be seen, who wanted to be the reason they said we're proud of you. But she wasn't here anymore. I put the phone down. It buzzed again. And again. Then, it rang. I didn't look. I walked away. I went into the backyard and sat on the steps, letting the cold air clear the fog in my head. And as I sat there, something shifted inside me, a realization that hit so hard and so suddenly it almost brought me to tears. This wasn't the worst day of my life. It was the first honest day. Because the truth hurt, yes, but it was real. For once, I wasn't living inside the version of my family I'd created in my mind. I was seeing them exactly as they were. People who made terrible choices and expected me to carry the consequences. I breathed deeply, letting the cold fill my lungs. When I finally went back inside, the house felt different. Not haunted, not heavy, just mine. At 3:17 p.m., Detective Harris called again. "It's done." His voice carried the weight of someone who'd delivered too many hard truths. "They've been transported to county holding." "Did they say anything?" I asked. He hesitated, like he was choosing his words. "Your mother kept insisting it was a misunderstanding. Your father became angry when we mentioned the evidence." I closed my eyes briefly. That sounded right. "What happens next?" Harris exhaled. "They'll be processed. Your brother has already been released." He gave a full statement. "Is he okay?" "He's shaken," Harris said gently. "He's been protecting them for a long time." Those words sank into me like stones. My brother had been protecting them, even when they used him, even when they lied, even when they made him carry consequences they created. It hit me suddenly, painfully. He wasn't the screw-up. He was the shield. And I had no idea. "He asked if you were okay," Harris added. My eyes burned unexpectedly. "Yeah," I whispered. "I'm okay." Harris paused. "You should talk to him." I knew he was right, but I didn't have the strength yet. "Soon. If you need anything," Harris said, "call me." The call ended. The house went quiet again. That quiet wasn't empty. It was relief. At 5:42 p.m., there was a soft knock at my door. Not police, not neighbors, not anyone I expected. When I opened it, my brother stood there. His face was pale. His eyes were tired, but he looked lighter, like the truth had finally stopped crushing him. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just stood there, waiting, like he needed permission to exist in my space again. My throat tightened. I stepped aside and whispered, "Come in." He walked inside slowly, like he wasn't sure he deserved to. He stood in the middle of the living room, looking everywhere except at me. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. "I'm so sorry." I felt the sting of tears, but not from anger. "Not anymore." "You shouldn't be apologizing," I said quietly. "You were trying to protect them." He shook his head, breaking. "I should have protected you too." And hearing that, hearing my brother, the one I thought had abandoned me, the one I believed had chosen our parents over me, say that, it broke me open in a way nothing else had. I walked toward him slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. He didn't move. When I reached him, I placed a hand on his shoulder. He flinched, not from fear, but from disbelief. Then he let out a breath and collapsed into an embrace he'd clearly been waiting for. We stood there for a long time, two people who hadn't realized they were on the same side until the world fell apart. When he finally pulled back, he wiped his eyes quickly, embarrassed. "I didn't know what they were asking me to do until it was too late," he said. "Thanks, Anissa, you'd forgive me." "They said you always forgave everything," I exhaled shakily. "Not this time," I whispered. He nodded, but there was sadness in his eyes. Not for the consequences, but for the truth behind them. We sat on the couch, him at one end, me at the other, like we needed space to breathe but not space from each other. "What happens now?" he asked. I looked at him, truly looked at him, and realized something. He didn't want my money. He didn't want saving. He wanted family, real family. Not the one we were raised with, the one we could choose to build now. I leaned forward. "Now," I said softly, "we start telling the truth. All of it." He nodded slowly. "Together?" Together. The weight in the room lifted, just a little, but enough. Because betrayal had brought us here, but honesty was going to take us out. The thing about after is nobody tells you how long it lasts. There's no clean fade to black when the police car doors slam and the sirens drive your parents out of your neighborhood. There's just this long, strange quiet where you're still their child, but also their witness, their victim, and their boundary all at once. And that's where part 9 really begins. Not in the chaos, but 3 weeks later in a courthouse that smelled like old paper and cold coffee, with my brother sitting next to me in a suit that didn't quite fit and a hollow look in his eyes like he was still waiting to wake up from a nightmare he didn't remember walking into. We hadn't seen our parents since the arrest. No phone calls, no visits, just filtered updates from Detective Harris. Charges filed, bail denied, plea negotiations discussed. And now we were here for the hearing that would decide what the next chapter of our family looked like on paper. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Not like TV. No grand balcony or dramatic echo. Just worn wood benches and a judge who looked like she'd heard every version of "It's Not My Fault" under the sun. And when they brought my parents in, shackled at the wrists, it did something weird to my brain. On one level, those were the same people who packed my lunch for school, who lectured me about curfews, who dragged me to dentist appointments. And on another level, they were strangers in beige jumpsuits, looking smaller than I'd ever seen them, but somehow that didn't make me feel soft. It made me feel accurate. Like this was the size of their choices finally, not the size of the image they tried to project. My mother looked for me immediately, her eyes sweeping the room, panicked and hopeful at the same time, like she expected I'd already forgiven her just for showing up. When she found me, her shoulders sagged in visible relief, like my presence meant something good, like I was there for her, not for the truth. My father looked different, older, angrier. He glanced at me once, jaw clenched, then looked away like I was the one who'd betrayed him by not answering those texts, not showing up to fix what he broke. Our names were read out, our relationship to the defendants noted for the record, and then the charges were listed: fraud, coercion, filing a false police report, reckless endangerment, conspiracy to defraud a family member, a stack of legal words that basically translated to "You stole, you lied, you weaponized your own child and hoped they wouldn't notice until it was too late." Their lawyer tried the angle we all expected: stress, addiction, desperation. We were just trying to protect our son. And when he said that last part, I felt my brother flinch next to me, like the words physically stung. I reached over and grabbed his wrist under the table, squeezing once to say, "I'm here." Because he'd already carried enough blame in his own head. He didn't need their attorney using him as a human shield. Then they called me to the stand. My legs felt like they were made of cement as I walked up, right hand raised, oath spoken, but my voice was steady when I said, "I do." And that steadiness surprised me. A year ago, I would have done anything to keep them from being embarrassed, to make them look good, to explain away their behavior, but this wasn't about embarrassment anymore. It was about impact, and the impact had a cost. The prosecutor asked simple, precise questions. What time did they call? What did they say? How did they describe my brother's situation? When did I find out from police that there was no immediate threat to him? How did their actions affect my job, my mental health, my relationship with my brother? It wasn't therapy, it was a record. And yet, every answer felt like closing a door I could never open again. At one point, the prosecutor asked, "Did your parents ever tell you the debt was theirs, not your brother's?" And the no that came out of my mouth carried a lifetime of hidden truths with it. There was a small ache in my chest as I watched my mother's face crumple, but I didn't look away. I'd spent my entire life adjusting my feelings to protect hers, and this was the first time I let the pain sit where it belonged. Then the defense attorney took his turn, and you could almost taste the strategy in the air. He started with, "You love your parents, don't you?" Like love and accountability were mutually exclusive concepts, like if I said yes, it automatically erased their choices. But I didn't play along. "I do," I said evenly, "but loving someone doesn't mean pretending they didn't hurt you." A couple of people in the gallery shifted at that, like the sentence hit a little too close to home. The attorney tried to frame it as a family misunderstanding, a moment of poor judgment under pressure, reminded me my parents had never been in trouble before, asked if I really wanted them to spend years in prison over one mistake. And that's when something inside me snapped in the best possible way, because the old version of me, the fixer, the peacekeeper, the one who prioritized harmony over honesty, would have folded, would have softened, would have taken responsibility for their consequences just to keep the fantasy of, we're a good family, intact. But the person sitting in that witness chair now had seen too much to go back. This wasn't one mistake, I said quietly but clearly. This was a pattern of choices that got them here. Borrowing money they couldn't repay was a choice. Going to a lender that uses threats instead of contracts was a choice. Dragging my brother into it was a choice. Calling me at 2 a.m. and lying about his life being in danger to manipulate me into pain, that was a choice. They didn't stumble into this, they walked. The room went very still. Even the judge's expression softened for a fraction of a second, like she'd heard 1,000 excuses, but not enough clarity like that. When I stepped down, my mother mouthed, "I'm sorry," over and over. Tears streaming down her face, and for the first time I believed she might actually be sorry. But not enough to let that sorry erase what came next. My father didn't mouth anything, he just stared at me like I'd joined the end, like I'd broken some blood oath he thought bound us to his bad decisions forever. The judge recessed for 40 minutes, then came back with a verdict that felt like a split between justice and mercy. They'd both take a plea deal, reduced prison time in exchange for full cooperation with the investigation into the lender, mandatory addiction counseling, restitution where possible, and a no-contact order unless I and my brother chose otherwise. It wasn't cinematic, no gavel slam that magically healed the wounds, no slow-motion reconciliation in the hallway, just the hard, administrative reality of consequences finally documented on paper. Outside the courthouse, the air felt different, sharper somehow. My brother and I stood on the steps watching reporters swarm some unrelated case across the street, thankful our mess wasn't public fodder, at least not yet. He shoved his hands in his pockets and said, "It kind of feels like we lost our parents today." And I thought about that for a long second before answering. "I think we lost them a long time ago," I said gently. "We just finally stopped pretending we hadn't." He nodded, eyes wet. But there was something like relief under the sadness, like the truth, as brutal as it was, weighed less than the constant work of maintaining the lie. In the weeks that followed, there were letters from my mother, pages of apologies, explanations, promises to change. There was one from my father, too, but his was full of blame and justification. Talk of ungrateful children and family loyalty, and you'll understand when you have kids. And I realized then that some people mistake access for entitlement. They think because they raised you, they own your future. I didn't write him back. I wrote her once, not with rage, not with comfort, but with conditions. I told her I wished her well, that I genuinely hoped she'd take the counseling seriously, that I believed addiction was a disease, but also believed responsibility was non-negotiable, and that if there was ever a future where we had a relationship again, it would be built on full honesty and mutual respect, not obligation and manipulation. I told her I loved her, but I also told her I was done being their emergency exit. My brother moved in with me for a while, not because he needed a place to crash, but because we both needed to remember we weren't alone. We cooked cheap dinners, laughed at dumb movies, went to individual and joint therapy, and slowly, painfully, we started sketching out a version of family that didn't require anybody to lie, steal, or sacrifice themselves to keep it standing. Here's the part most people don't talk about in stories like this. Forgiving someone and trusting them again are not the same thing. I'm working on forgiveness, mostly for my own sanity, but trust? That's a bridge they may never earn back. And that's okay. You're allowed to love people from a distance that protects your peace. So if you're still here, watching, listening, I want to ask you something, because this isn't just my story. It's a mirror a lot of us don't want to look into. If your parents or your siblings called you at 2 a.m. like mine did, crying, demanding thousands of dollars, insisting it was life or death, would you empty your account, no questions asked? Or would you pause long enough to ask, how many choices did you make before you dragged me into this? Drop your answer in the comments, because someone out there needs to see they're not the only one wrestling with that. And if this story hit a little too close to home, if you grew up being the responsible one, the fixer, the designated hero in a house built on quiet chaos, do me a favor, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with us, because we tell the stories people live but never say out loud. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't saving your family from their consequences, it's saving yourself from being buried under them. The strange thing about moving on is how nobody warns you that it doesn't feel like walking away. It feels more like walking through the smoke of a house that's still burning behind you, each step carrying the smell of what you survived. 3 months after the sentencing hearing, that's exactly where I was, somewhere between freedom and fallout, trying to rebuild a life that didn't require me to constantly brace for a phone call, a crisis, or a guilt trip disguised as a family emergency. I'd started small, the way therapists tell you to. New routines, steady meals, longer walks. I cleaned out my apartment, getting rid of the things I only kept out of obligation. Old birthday cards filled with backhanded praise. Holiday gifts that came with strings attached. Photos where I smiled like someone trying to convince themselves they belonged. My brother, who had spent years lost in the middle of our parents' storm, was learning to live without waiting for someone to call him irresponsible, selfish, or ungrateful. He'd found a part-time job unloading trucks at a warehouse. Hard work, early mornings, steady pay. He called it the first thing I've earned without paying emotional tax. Therapy helped us build new vocabulary too, words like boundaries, accountability, generational patterns, and the one that hit me the hardest, enmeshment. The therapist explained it in simple terms. You weren't a child, you were a safety net. It felt like a punch and a relief at the same time. Around week 10, something happened that shifted everything again. Not a crisis this time, but something quieter, almost inconvenient in its gentleness. A letter arrived. Not from my father, he'd stopped trying, but from my mother. Not one of the earlier apologies dripping with guilt and desperation. This one was different. It was shorter, honest, stripped of the sweet talk she used to manipulate with. She wrote, "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to learn how to deserve it." That single sentence rewired something in my chest in a way I didn't expect. Because for the first time, she wasn't hiding behind excuses or tears or theatrics. She owned it, not perfectly, not completely, but enough that reading it didn't reopen a wound. It just acknowledged one. I didn't reply right away, I sat with it. Therapy taught me that decisions made too quickly are usually survival instincts disguising themselves as generosity. I read the letter twice a day for a week, letting the emotions sift themselves out. Anger, grief, nostalgia, fear, hope. Then, carefully, deliberately, I wrote back, "I'm willing to talk, but not about the past, not yet. For now, only about who you want to be going forward." I mailed it on a Wednesday. She got it on Friday. She didn't respond, not for a week, not for 2, and strangely, that silence didn't hurt. It reassured me. It meant she wasn't rushing. It meant she was thinking. In the background of all this, life moved without drama for the first time in years. I started cooking more. I reconnected with friends I'd pulled away from. I applied for a promotion at work I'd been too overwhelmed to consider before. My brother saved enough to rent a small place across town. We helped each other move his stuff in one weekend, carrying boxes, making jokes, pausing sometimes when old memories tried to take shape. At one point, he stopped on the stairs, wiped sweat from his forehead, and said, "Do you ever feel guilty for being happy?" I didn't answer right away. I let the question sit between us like a fragile object. "I think happiness feels guilty when you've spent your whole life walking on eggshells," I finally said. "But it's allowed now. We're allowed now." He exhaled like the words loosened something in him. 2 weeks later, my mother wrote again, just 3 sentences this time. "Thank you for your letter. I'm taking counseling seriously. When you're ready, I'd like to hear your voice again, not because I deserve it yet, but because I want to earn the chance." I didn't call her right away, but for the first time, I didn't dread the idea of calling her someday. Healing doesn't come as one big moment. It's tiny moments where nothing hurts. It's being able to hear your phone vibrate without bracing for catastrophe. It's realizing a quiet night isn't a countdown to the next family disaster. Then came the phone call that proved things really had changed. It was a Saturday morning. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. My stomach didn't flip this time. I picked it up calmly. "Hello?" A familiar voice answered, Detective Harris. But this time his tone wasn't urgent or grim, it was neutral, almost warm. "Just wanted to update you," he said. "The investigation into the lender your parents were entangled with has wrapped. There won't be any further action required from you." I thanked him, hung up. And for the first time in months, I didn't collapse into relief, I just breathed. It meant the story was really closing, not with a dramatic finale, not with revenge, but with the door simply shutting. That afternoon, I took a walk through the park near my apartment. Kids laughed around the fountain, people walked dogs, someone played guitar under a shady tree, and I realized something unbelievably simple but unbelievably powerful. My life wasn't something I had to defend anymore. It was something I could live. Halfway through the walk, I sat on a bench and typed a text I never thought I'd send. "Mom, I'm ready to talk. Not long, not emotional, just a conversation. Sunday afternoon," she replied within minutes. "Yes, thank you. Truly." The next day, my brother and I sat together again, this time not because we were bracing for trauma, but because we were choosing what kind of family we wanted to build from here on. A family where honesty didn't feel dangerous, where love didn't come with condition, where boundaries weren't punishments but protections. The call with my mother was short, 20 minutes. She cried. I didn't. Not because I was cold, but because my tears weren't tied to her anymore. My peace wasn't either. She apologized again, really apologized, without blaming stress or money or my father or anything else. She took ownership. And I told her the truth, that healing wasn't a reunion, it was a reconstruction, a new version of a relationship built with new rules. When the call ended, I didn't feel shattered. I felt steady, and that steadiness stayed. Because the real ending wasn't the court case or the sentencing or even the apology. It was the moment I realized that choosing myself didn't make me disloyal, it made me free. So here's what I want to leave you with. The question I had to learn the hard way. If the people you love force you to shrink just to fit their definition of family, is that love? Or is that captivity with a nice holiday card? Drop your answer in the comments. And if my story made you think, made you breathe deeper, or made you feel seen, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Because the truth is, sometimes the most radical act of love is learning to love yourself first.